Welcome, everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about nutrition, gut health, and getting into the mind of better nutrition overall. I understand nutrition might not be the most glamorous thing to talk about. I'm sure you want to talk about maybe politics, maybe dating, relationships, career, success, money. But nutrition is going to be the foundation for most of that to happen. If you want to get into mindset, for example, right? You might think that in order to get into mindset, the only thing you need to do is focus on your mind. Well, that's a great place to begin, but there's so many aspects to mindset that you have to understand. Have you ever tried to think or to do something when you were hungry? Maybe you're trying to do some homework, maybe do some emails, but you just kept thinking about food, or you're just like, I'm hungry, like I can't focus. Sometimes when we have those distractions, our mindset can be in a place that is not going to be effective. So our nutrition plays a vital role, a key essential part to our success, to our mindset, to our growth and our development. But yet many people, they think nutrition is just one of those things that they do as the day goes on. They eat breakfast, they eat lunch, they eat dinner. Not so much concerning about the quality of their food or what type of foods they're putting into the body, whether it be balanced or not. They say, as long as I'm getting food in my body, I stop my brain from thinking about hunger for a moment. But yet, just because you stop your brain from thinking about the hunger, just shutting it up basically, are you giving it the energy? Are you giving your body the energy to do things that you want to do? Because it's easy to press a silence button on the fire alarm. It's more difficult to find the problem that you're experiencing that is affecting your life right now. So if you're ready to stop pressing the silence button on your life and you want to dive deep into nutrition, into how you can get more energy, find more happiness and fulfillment, and start to create the habits that are going to give you a better life, then this interview with my guest, Daina Rasutis, is going to be exactly what you need to jumpstart your nutrition and to give you the energy to get everything done in your 24 hours. So here's that interview right now. Whispers in my head, what you gonna do? So take it, kid. Welcome, Daina Rasutis, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for coming on. Today, I have you on as a nutrition therapist. We're going to be talking about your work in just a minute. And nutrition is one of those things I think many people, they just kind of throw to the wayside. They don't really put it to heart until maybe their heart's at jeopardy. They have high cholesterol. There's something going on in their life where they say, you know what, let me start to focus on my life. But nutrition doesn't have to be difficult. So today we're going to be talking about how we can make nutrition simple. But before we get into that, let's understand your work, why you got into it, and how you help people change their nutrition.
I typically work with health conscious clients. So people who already live healthy lifestyles, they're interested in nutrition and eating the right foods, but they're still struggling with symptoms, mainly digestive symptoms, hormonal imbalances, and skin conditions like acne. These people who think that they're doing everything right, but still not feeling well, often they'll go to their doctors and their doctors will say, your blood markers look good. There's nothing wrong. I don't know why you're feeling that way. So those are the clients that come to me.
Okay. And when we start to look at some of the problems that are maybe on the surface level, like acne, we sometimes might chalk it up to genetics. Like, oh, my mom had this, my dad had this. Do you find that to be common with some of your clients?
Oh my gosh, so common. And genetics does play a small role, but so much of it is epigenetic. So depending on your decisions that you make every day, the food that you're eating, the lifestyle that you're living, and the genetic component, it could be that, you are genetically predisposed to have acne, but that doesn't make it a rule that you have to live with it forever. There's things that you can certainly do to improve it. Just you're genetically ungifted to have that come up for you specifically as a person.
When I was in high school, I had acne, and it wasn't so much of me having because my father had acne or my mom had acne. It was because I was drinking so much soda, and I would just drink all this soda, and I'm like, why do I have acne? And I would get all this stuff for your face, cleanser, and things like that. And it wasn't until I stopped drinking the soda where I started to see my face clear up. And I mean, if you suffer from acne, you probably know it's going to put a strain on your confidence. You're going to look in the mirror. You're going to be like, I don't like this. And there's just so much to it. But nutrition is building the confidence, because when you start to eat better, you start to feel better and you start to look better. And when someone really starts to focus on their nutrition, let's used a word I don't like, dieting. Dieting and nutrition are two totally different things. I understand you can go on a diet to try to lose weight, but I wanted to get your interpretation on the difference between dieting and nutrition.
Oh, that's a tough one. Some people will use it interchangeably, but dieting has such a negative connotation, right? Because we associate it with weight loss and we associate it with restrictions. Typically, when I use the word diet with my clients, we're more holistically focused. So we're not talking about counting calories and being really strict and weighing your food. We're talking about nutrition in general. We're talking about how are we going to increase the nutrient density of your foods? What foods specifically could provide the nutrients that you're missing? I think it depends on the person and how they're using it, but I would like to change that diet is always viewed so negatively and only associated with weight loss, because that's not necessarily the case at all.
I definitely agree. Dieting doesn't have to be one of those terms that people cringe at, like, oh, you're on a diet. Like, ooh, like, are you so fancy that you're going to go on Whole30? You're going to go on keto? You're going to go on paleo? And typically people are just going on it for a moment. It's not a lifestyle change. That's why I don't prefer dieting, because people put this in their mind that I'm on a diet for 90 days. I'm not trying to change my nutrition for a lifetime. There's a big difference between saying you want to change your nutrition and you want to go on a diet to fit in that dress, that if you have a wedding or something, or if you have to lose some weight for a race, whatever it be. We have to look at the short term and the long term. So when we look at nutrition, tell me about the short term and the long term.
I love that you bring that up. I think that's exactly what we do in holistic nutrition. We might put someone on a short-term diet, something therapeutic, but with the long-term goal of completely changing the way they were eating previously. So it's not a short-term thing of like, okay, we're going to go on 3 months and then you're going to go right back to where you were. That's not how it works. Yes, it might be a more strict time for you to learn these new habits, do that therapeutic diet. If it's something that you're tackling in your gut, maybe there's some kind of overgrowth and we need to be really specific. But afterwards, my goal is to get my clients on a very balanced diet that's forever, so that they can feel good and have that nutrient dense food coming into them every day.
What would you say is the biggest problem today when it comes to nutrition and people eating the wrong foods?
Ooh, well, processed foods is definitely number one. And I think everyone's aware of this. We all know processed foods is bad, no matter what diet camp you fall into. We all know that processed foods, mostly ultra processed foods, we're talking about many ingredients, things you can't pronounce. That's definitely the number one thing to do. I mean, those foods are created to be hyper palatable. They're created for you to overeat. They're not nutrient dense. I mean, that's the absolute first thing to get out of a diet. Otherwise, I would say one thing that people can focus on is actually increasing their protein intake, which is finally starting to be a bigger conversation. But just having high quality protein at every meal, especially breakfast, is something that people would really benefit from to improve the quality of their diet.
We're going to get into a bunch of stuff because you touched on so many great things there. The first thing I want to harp on is when you're like at the grocery store, I'm sure there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, because if you go into the middle aisles, you're going to find a lot of those items that you're not going to be able to pronounce. If you turn it around, you read the nutritional facts, you're going to say, wait, what is that? You don't even know what you're putting into your body. But typically, if you say on the outside, you have your fruits, your veggies, your meats, and those are going to be the things that are very simple to read. You probably know exactly what's there. You know what you're going to be putting into your body. And I think sometimes we just find comfort in some of the things that are easy. It's easy to get a box of maybe instant rice instead of going for the bag of rice and cooking it yourself. Or maybe getting a bag of Doritos, right? Because it's just easy. And when you want something to munch on, especially if you're watching TV, if you're doing something that's just kind of like checking you out, maybe on your phone, you can do these things that are very harmful to you in the long term. Before we get into more aspects of nutrition, I wanted to get into good habits at the grocery store. I know this might be a question you might not answer quite often.
Oh, such a good question. I think you nailed it. Sticking to the outside of the grocery store is a really good starting point, and getting as many whole foods as possible. So things that either don't have labels or the label has one ingredient, like frozen peas, and that's the only thing in there. So that's a really good rule of thumb. So go by that. Then you could look at higher quality versions of the things you love. Like, let's say you love some mac and cheese because that's something that brings you back to being a kid. It's easy, whatever it might be. that food's still okay to stay in your diet as an occasional treat, but look for a higher quality. Look for something that's made with organic ingredients, for example, that doesn't have all these additives. It's amazing what the industry has done now to provide us with better options. They might be a little more expensive, but it's really not huge differences if you're treating it as an occasional food. So that's also a good thing to do, especially because it's convenient and we're all busy. So those convenient foods shouldn't have to be scratched out of the diet necessarily, but just finding better quality versions of them.
And would you say it's easier to eat healthy on a budget, or is it easier to be unhealthy on a budget?
Good question. It becomes an investment, right? You might have to pay a little bit more upfront, but in the end, you are going to feel better, meaning you're going to be more productive in life. You're going to show up better every single day, and you're going to avoid chronic diseases, which are going to be really expensive in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Spending that little bit of extra money at first is going to save you money in the end.
Yeah. And sometimes you might think that you're doing the right thing. For me, it was like 2016. I was going through a lot of moments in my life, and it took a lot to get out of it. But what I did was I just didn't want to eat. I didn't want to be healthy. I just didn't want to do the right things. I knew what to do. It was just that I just didn't want to do it. And I would just go to like a fast food place, get a bacon, egg, and cheese. And that was the only thing I ate all day. And what happened was my body was like, no, we need more food. We need this, or we're just going to shut down. And that's exactly what my body did. It started to break down. And I had to get a trainer. I had to get my life back on track. It wasn't something that I said, okay, well, I'm going to go online. I'm going to read a blog. It's a great place to start. But talking about your work, how you help people getting into the mindset, to the habits of nutrition, getting their life back, reclaiming maybe good habits and kind of relinquishing those bad habits. Where do people begin?
The most important thing is meeting my clients where they're at. Everyone starts differently. If someone's coming in and their life is overwhelming, they're completely lost with their nutrition habits, their exercise habits, we start with small baby steps. So it's not overwhelming, because if you overwhelm a client from the get-go, they're not going to succeed. It's supporting them with wherever they're at. And even if that's small changes, that's going to be valuable. And it's always so much easier to have that support system. So what you mentioned, yes, you could read the blog post. Yes, you can have all that information, but having a coach, a cheerleader, working with you, someone that you want to be proud of you, it makes such a difference. Just not being alone in your journey and having someone to lean on.
And have you ever had a moment in your life where maybe you had poor nutrition and you kind of woke up and you said, I want to share my experience with the world. I want to help people not go through the hardship I went through, or to help people get back to the lifestyle that I know they can be living?
My nutrition journey was slowly developing since college or so. So I was always moderately interested in healthy eating, but the more research I did, the more I realized there's so much misinformation out there. And my journey really pivoted when I worked with a naturopathic doctor to take care of my own adult acne, and realizing it was all gut health related. So then I knew that I wanted to specialize in gut health. I wanted to help people through food, supplements, lifestyle, which is why I became a nutrition therapist.
And one of the questions I want to ask is about, it might be more about timing than nutrition, but if someone wants to do like fasting, intermittent fasting, I know is very popular today, where people will take maybe 16 hours off and they'll have an 8-hour eating window. Do you think that people are able to get in all their nutrients that their body needs in that 8-hour window?
Great question. Yes. Short answer is yes. I think as long as you're eating enough protein, especially at those meals, which is hard for people to prioritize because oftentimes we lean more towards the carbohydrate foods to start with. So if someone was choosing to do intermittent fasting, and that's a specific type of client that I would recommend that for, definitely prioritize protein at every meal. So start with your protein, and then obviously any type of colorful, especially non-starchy vegetables like a salad, cucumbers, tomatoes, crunchy things like that. And then leaving the carbohydrates, whether it might be something like rice, any type of bread, more like products towards the end of the meal. But caveat there, intermittent fasting is having its shining moment right now, but it can get a little bit tricky, especially with women who are cycling, so of childbearing age, just for hormonal reasons, because our hormones are already very sensitive, and putting the body into a fasted state is another stressor, and the body might not feel safe anymore, which can really disrupt hormones. So if any women out there are listening and they're about that, teenage to late 40s age, just be really cautious with fasting. And I typically recommend that my clients stick to 12 to 14 hours max, and it even depends on what part of the cycle that you're in. It's a complicated conversation.
And I agree, it is complicated. Some people it's going to work for. So it's not like, hey, just intermittent fast, you're going to lose all this weight, you're going to be in the best shape of your life, because some people need small meals. Some people need to start to eat more to raise their metabolism again because they slowed it down for whatever reason. I know age can play a role, but sometimes just people are like, I'm just busy. I got a 9 to 5, I get my 12 o'clock lunch, and then maybe I eat dinner. So, and breakfast could be something very quick, maybe a coffee, maybe a donut. And that right there is not going to help you, because if you think about it, coffee and donuts, I don't think they have much protein in it, maybe 1 or 2 grams.
Yeah, that's the exact problem with the breakfast foods that we think of these days. It's so embarrassing. Like pancakes and waffles, even toast. There's no protein in there. It's all carbohydrates. You're going to crash in an hour. It sets you up for failure for the rest of the day because you're going to have those blood sugar highs and lows. Like what you said, no protein. It's horrible for our stress response. It's just, we got to get away from eating these food industry created breakfast foods.
And I know this is going to be different for every individual because certain foods work better for certain people. And I know certain people can have allergies to certain foods and they might not even know it. But let's just say best case scenario for a full day of eating, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe snacks in between. What would you recommend?
Ooh, good question. All right. So first of all, breakfast, ideally having it within an hour or two of waking. High protein is the most important thing. So I like my clients to shoot for about 30 grams of protein, which is a lot. I mean, that's like 5 eggs. So usually we think of 2 eggs as enough protein for breakfast. That's not enough. If you eat meat, that could be something like an organic chicken sausage with some scrambled eggs. If you're more plant-based leaning, maybe doing some oatmeal with protein powder mixed in it. You could do some Greek yogurt. There's lots of ideas there, but making sure that it's higher protein. And I also like to have some kind of fiber. So whether that's even a salad, which some people don't think of for breakfast, but it could be a little bit of a salad. It could be sauteed kale or spinach, maybe some sauerkraut, a scoop of that. And so that would be a really colorful, beautiful plate. For lunch, so within about 4 hours later would be lunchtime. And that's the beauty of eating higher protein is you're going to be satiated. If you're eating those waffles, pancakes, breads type of foods, you're going to be hungry within an hour or two. And that's when people reach for the snacks. So really, if you're increasing your protein, you're not going to want a snack, which is actually really good for gut health, to leave a couple hours between meals because it lets your digestive system rest, clear out, avoid any type of overgrowth, which will lead to things like bloating and gas and all those symptoms that we don't want to have. Lunch, again, focusing on some kind of protein source. You could have a rule of thumb, and this is for lunch and dinner. I like to talk about a balanced plate and how one might imagine that. So if you have your plate, I'd say half of it would be non-starchy vegetables. So think of a salad, like I mentioned, cucumbers, tomatoes, eggplant, things like that. So some kind of salad, whether it's raw or greens that are cooked or anything that's cooked. Quarter of the plate would be protein source. So whether that's salmon, chicken, it could be organic red meat, it could be fish, anything like that would be a quarter of your plate. If you're plant-based, leaning more towards beans, organic soy would be good options. And then lastly, the other quarter of your plate would be some kind of starch, ideally some kind of vegetable. So like roasted sweet potatoes, winter squash, parsnips, carrots, something like that. Could be a grain if you tolerate grains okay, if you're an active person. So that would be both lunch and dinner. Either one works for that, but that plating combo of half starchy vegetables, quarter protein, quarter carb starch.
I think it was like 2 Christmases ago where I was up with my family in Connecticut and we had made breakfast with eggs and we had salad with the eggs. My mom was like, salad with eggs. I'm like, try it out. It's pretty good, actually. And believe it or not, it's so weird, but it works. It's like you would not think. I mean, if you think about it, when they make a chef salad, they put, hard-boiled eggs on it. So why wouldn't maybe scrambled eggs or an omelet work with it? And if we think about other cultures, I believe it's big over in Asia, where they eat salad in the morning with their breakfast. It's not the weirdest thing. I know here in the West, we like our bacon and our toast, but maybe that bacon and toast can be substituted for something a little bit better. And I love the aspect of how we can use our plate to section things off. So we got half protein, we got half vegetables, whatever it be. It makes it easy versus, I have to get a scale. I have to measure it out. Like, how many calories is this lettuce? Like, I don't know. And it kind of alleviates a lot of the learning that people have to get into. Now, you could always get a coach, a trainer. They can just kind of do it for you, and then it's easy. But you should learn for yourself, too, because if you always have to go to an app to figure out things, the probability that you're going to do it every single day is so low. I mean, yes, you can make the habit, but just using your plate as that pie chart, it's like, okay, I got it. I hit it. Let's do this. And then you can learn with trial and error. Or if you have a nutritionist like Dinah, you're going to find like, hey, all right, this was too much. This is not enough. And then it's super balanced. I find that to be so important. But I think you missed something pretty important that I think people love and people are wondering about. What about the desserts?
Great question. I love my desserts too. I have a sweet tooth. Whenever I work with clients, I don't try to take anything away. And I practice intuitive eating, kind of just exactly what you explained. So it's a visual thing. You have an intuitive sense of the composition of your plate rather than weighing things. Similarly with desserts, I'm not anti-dessert, but one suggestion would be high quality. So same thing, not sticking to whether it's Oreos or these poor quality foods that you find at typical grocery stores, just trying to stay away from that. Going for higher quality versions, whether that's something like darker chocolate. There's tons of options now for healthier versions. Oftentimes on the package, you'll find paleo. So if you find a paleo type of food, that often means it's made with higher quality ingredients. And if you're going to eat dessert, try eating it after a meal. Try not to snack on that cupcake in between meals because it's such a big carbohydrate / sugar load that it's really going to spike your blood sugar, and your blood sugar is going to crash. And that's when you get all those like hangriness, you get tired, you get crabby, all those horrible feelings. And then you want another cupcake because you're feeling tired. So it just becomes this vicious cycle. So if you're going to have a dessert, have it after having a full meal, ideally with a high amount of protein. That'll really help with your blood sugar spike so that you don't feel as bad and it just doesn't affect your body as strongly.
And I agree with after the meal having your dessert. It is definitely a Western ideal. I mean, it might be a worldly idea at this point because we eat and then we have our cake, we have our ice cream, we have something after, something that's going to give us that sweetness. And what I have found is that people, they take this to the bank. I mean, like they abuse this like nothing I have seen before. They'll eat their salad. They'll have their chicken, their grilled chicken, half their plate. Heck, 75% of their plate is just grilled chicken. And then after they eat a whole cake. I'm like, Jesus, like what happened? Like you're trying to eat healthy, but you're still doing these bad habits. Do you think that sugars like that are telling the brain to almost harm itself in a sense? Because it's like salad was good, chicken is good, but this cake, oh my God, it's my favorite cake. Maybe you like carrot, maybe you like red velvet, chocolate, whatever is your favorite. You just can't get enough. You just don't know how to limit. How do you help people limit that?
Ooh, that could be just working on habits. So little by little, getting off of that sugar addiction because sugar truly is an addictive substance. So just having people come off of it. If it is something that you absolutely cannot control, then that shows me that there could be something going on inside of you, like an overgrowth of something like a pathogen, like a yeast, for example, candida. And that point, it's not your fault anymore. It's your body's taken over by this craving and you're feeding the bugs that are inside of you. You're not even feeding your own body. So that's something to keep in mind. If you feel like you've done all the right things, you're eating tons of protein, which really should nix that craving for sugar. You should feel very satiated. Then I would definitely want to do some assessment of the gut.
And I know you specialize in gut health. So let's dive into that because I think that is going to pique a lot of people's interest right now because you're saying that there's something in the belly that's making them crave sweets. Where and when did that happen for individuals? Did it happen when they were younger? Did it happen when they started eating bad foods in high school? Or maybe now that their metabolism is a lot slower as they're adults, it started to act up. When did that begin, like the gut health issues?
Poor gut health can stem from many different reasons. One common way it can happen is if you have a bout of food poisoning, for example, and that just really disrupts the microbiome. And after that, you could have some kind of dysbiosis, which is imbalance of the bacteria in the gut, and that could lead to gut issues. It could be a food sensitivity that you're not aware of that's disrupting the gut lining. It could be inflammatory foods that you're eating, whether it's poor quality oils that are rancid or processed foods or too much sugar. And all of that's disrupting the delicate bacteria, the microbiome, and that'll lead to the ability for other things to overgrow. We can kind of think of the gut like a garden, and a little bit of weeds is okay because if there's a lot of strength in the soil and the flowers are proliferating, all is well. But if the weeds start overtaking the garden, then we have a problem. So same thing happens in our gut.
No, that's a great analogy too, because I know people who think that, oh, I have to cut it all out. And when they try to cut it all out, they just have a relapse and then they just end up hurting themselves in the end. I think, just going at it in a way of you can have your cake, but you do have to understand that treat it like the weed in the garden, right? You don't want to just say, okay, I'm going to start growing weeds in my garden and then maybe have like a couple of tomatoes around the weeds. People don't think that when they have a garden. And we have to start to think about that when we have our nutrition forefront in our mind. One of the last topics I want to get into is nutrition and energy. Many people, they'll work a 9 to 5, maybe they'll have family, and they will come home and they're just so tired. They're just so exhausted. But to be honest, just for me, work coaching for so many years, their work typically is not so strenuous to the point that it's going to exhaust them to not take action. I believe it's their diet, their nutrition that's not giving their body the energy, the oomph, the momentum they need to go past that 5 o'clock mark. What is your take on that?
Definitely. And it's that same vicious cycle. If you're not eating nutrient dense diet, you're going to be tired. You're too tired to cook. So your diet starts to relapse. It's so important to get nutrient density. The problem is that our foods right now just aren't as high in nutrients as they used to be. Our soils aren't as high in nutrients. So people might think, oh, I eat tons of vegetables. I don't need to take any vitamins or minerals. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in anymore. So supplements, I think, are a part of pretty much everyone's life, should be. So even if you're eating a relatively good diet, very likely you're still deficient in certain things. And certain nutrients are going to cause low energy. Definitely things to assess, whether it's running blood markers to see where you're at for different nutrients, whether it's looking at your gut health to make sure you're absorbing the nutrients from the food, because that's another thing I see. You can be eating the most beautiful, perfect diet, but if your gut's messed up, you're not even absorbing those nutrients. So there's so many things that could go wrong, and it's just domino effect. One
of the things you said made me chuckle was because some people think they don't have time for nutrition the same as they don't have time to go to the gym. There's no time to go to the gym. There's no time to meal prep. There's no time to eat healthy. So they opt for the alternative, a quick McDonald's, a quick Burger King, or something along those lines. It's filling, but it's not maybe fulfilling because it's not going to give you the energy to do the things that you love later on. And when we are getting into the aspect of finally saying, I want to get my nutrition on track. I want to get my habits on track. What is stopping people from saying, I'm going to get my nutrition in check today? What's that number one thing stopping people?
A big part of it, I think, is just not prioritizing it because it's hard. Just like what you said, that we don't have time. But the reality is none of us have time to be healthy. None of us have time to go to the gym. You make time. And that's just what it comes down to, because there's nothing more important than your health. And you only realize this when you don't have your health anymore. Finding ways to prioritize it, whether it's meal prepping, whether it's working with your family to assign tasks, whether it's batch prepping, whatever it might be, finding the things that work for you to make nutrition part of your life.
No, I think that's important too, because in a sense, all we have is time and all we don't have is the time we're looking for. Because we are trying to go to the gym, we're trying to eat healthy, and we all have 24 hours in a day, but it does like beckon the call of if someone who's succeeding wildly, doing really, really good, they have the same 24 hours that we do. What's stopping us from doing what they're doing? What's stopping us from living the life that you have, Daina, right? What's stopping the life that, people are trying to get? What's stopping people from reaching my lifestyle? It's all about we begin where we are. You said it early on, right? You begin where you are. Sometimes you might be in a really dark place. You're just eating really bad foods. We're not going to take away all those foods at once, people. I don't want you to think that we're going to take away your hamburgers and your hot dogs and your cheesecakes. That is not what we want. We want you to be in better nutrition. We want you to make better choices. And I know sometimes when people, they are about to reach out to a specialist, someone who's going to help them with their life, whether it be coaching or nutrition, they are always hesitant because of that change. They fear the change. They say, I don't want this person to change me. What I have is good. But what do you have is good, but can it not be great? And I always tell people to invest in themselves and to discover something more about themselves that they might not know about themselves today, because you might not know you have gut health. Heck, I didn't know anything about like you can have something inside of you that could be giving you the cravings. And then, of course, with women, especially if they're going through certain cycles, certain periods of their life, they're going to be in a different type of or they're going to need a different type of nutrition. That right there are going to be things that I don't think many people learned about in high school. And many people are not going to go check out after high school. This right here is going to be a great starting point, I believe, for people to really dive deep into nutrition, to really discover what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And if they are in bad health or in bad nutrition, they can begin that process today. And I think what we talked about is going to be a great starting point. And then also reaching out to you, Daina, for consultation, checking out what's going on in their life. But before we begin to wrap up, I would love to get some final words from you and then for you to tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah, I think you summarize it perfectly. A couple good places to start. Really, if you're looking to do one change, just get away from processed foods. And I'd say increase that breakfast protein, because the way you start your day is really going to set you up for success for the rest of the day. Try to do that if you're listening and you want to do something to make a change. And people can find me through my website and my Instagram. My business is Table to Crave. So that's my handle. That's my website. I have a weekly newsletter that I sign out that people can sign up for easy nutrition tips, recipes, products I like. So that's a really good place to start too.
Perfect. And I'm going to make it easy for everyone. The links are going to be in the description box below. Check her out and also look for those recipes. I know sometimes people think like, oh, I don't know how to cook. I don't know what to cook. If you have recipes coming in your mailbox every single week, I can guarantee you, you're going to say, oh, that would be a good idea. Let me try that. And when you go to the grocery store the next time, you're going to have that in the back of your mind saying, you know what? I need to get some potatoes. I need to get some eggs. I need to get some salmon. Whatever it be, versus let me get my typical regular stuff that is not healthy anymore. All right. So let's stay away from the Kraft macaroni and cheese and start for something better. I want to thank you so much for coming on, Daina, and then talking about your work.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. This was great.
All right, everyone. I'd like to thank you so much for watching that interview with Daina and myself. As you can see, she is well-versed in nutrition. She has been studying it for years, and she is passionate about the work that she does. She wants people to understand that nutrition is not something that we should just say, I'll do it later. Because anyone can say, I'll do it later. Anyone can say that I'm just going to eat until I'm full. I'm just going to eat until I'm satiated. Or I'm going to eat until I'm satisfied. But we could be missing core essential macros in our life. And I'm not talking about bodybuilding macros where you need to find the right protein, the carbs, and the fats. I'm not saying that that is not a part of nutrition, but it doesn't have to be so confusing. The way that Daina said it, just looking at your plate is so powerful because you get to say, well, if you are going to have 50% of cheesecake on your plate and then maybe 25% chicken and then 25% maybe cucumbers or some salad or some spinach or whatever it be, some green leafy vegetables, you're going to find that you don't have a diet that is going to be really healthy, right? Because you can see right there in front of you. Yet many people don't see that if they don't use the plate analogy. If you just say, okay, I'm going to eat my food, and you have a certain amount of chicken, vegetables, et cetera, it reaches a certain level of macros. So you might hit 35 grams of protein. You might have maybe 48 grams of carbs, and you might have about 16 grams of fat, depending, right? Probably not all that. But then we put in a cheesecake in the mix, right? And we say, well, since we ate so healthy, we're going to have some cheesecake and we're going to have about 3 to 4 grams of protein. We're going to have about 38 grams of carbs and we're going to have about 24 grams of fats. And I know this can be so confusing and it doesn't have to be that way, right? I just made it confusing for the reason of if you get someone, a nutritionist, someone who's going to be well-versed in understanding the foods that you can eat, the foods that you're not going to eat, and to say, hey, if you want to have that cheesecake, you can. But we are trying to reach certain levels in our life. And sometimes we're going to have to say, you know what, I'm not going to have that whole slice of cheesecake. I'm going to have maybe half of the slice of cheesecake. And we just begin to make changes that way. I know sometimes it can be difficult to just kind of jumpstart or upstart. Well, I've been doing this for so long. And then all of a sudden now you have to make a change today. But that change can be small, incremental. We start where we are, as we said multiple times in the podcast. Because that is so powerful. Because if you are maybe overweight and you are trying to lose weight, probably going, running, 10 miles an hour on the treadmill is probably not a good place to start. I understand people can do it, but it doesn't mean that it's the best place for you. Maybe just walking around the block, walking with friends and family. And maybe nutrition can be maybe just having 5 square meals a day, right? Maybe you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you have 2 snacks in between. Maybe you just have 3 meals a day. Maybe you learn how to do intermittent fasting the right way There's so many different aspects to nutrition, and many people get it wrong. When you go to the gym, if you talk to any of the big guys in the gym, bodybuilders, whatever it be, they will say that nutrition plays about 70% of the part. It's not about hitting the gym all the time or making sure you get, on the track and you get your steps in, or the Stairmaster to get your steps in. This is about understanding that the foundation that you create for yourself, be it nutrition, has so many other effects in your life. It plays so much more than what people think nutrition is. Nutrition is not just being full and feeling full. It's about eating the foods that are going to be helpful to you, to give you the energy that you need to do the things that you love to do. I'm sure you might love, or maybe not love, but like to come home and watch TV, but do you love it? Because if I sat down with you and we did some mindset coaching, I can almost guarantee you I can find more things you love than TV. And so when we can work with a nutritionist, because I typically work with many nutritionists alongside with my clients, because it is so important that we get it right. Because I don't want people to try to do something in their life and they don't have the fuel, they don't have the energy because they have a poor diet, they have a poor nutrition. Because again, you can come from mindset coaching, but if everything else is messed up, it's like saying, well, I want to buy new curtains for my house, but my house is on fire. There's certain things we have to do before we buy the curtains, before we put up a new fresh coat of paint. There's aspects that we have to make sure our body, our temple, if you want to call it that, is going to be in the best possible place. And as I said, the links are going to be in the description box below. Check out what Daina's doing. Check out her Instagram, follow her, support her in any way, which way you can, and start to learn more about nutrition, because I find when you start to give yourself just little bits of information, whether it be a blog, a newsletter, you're going to start to give yourself the incentive to do the things that you're reading. So if you're just watching junk, you're going to keep getting junk. You're going to start consuming junk. You're going to keep filling your life with junk. You're going to keep getting junk, and you're going to wonder why your life is full of junk. But if you start to give your life goodness, things that are beneficial, things that are going to help you grow, help you learn, help you be in a better place, your life starts to alter into that sense now. More positive, better lifestyle, more happiness and fulfillment. I mean, most people want that. Most people want to reach for it, but most people don't have the discipline and the habits yet to do it. This episode is going to be a great place to begin. Start with nutrition, end with mindset. You're going to find that that's going to be maybe the best recipe that you're going to get from this episode, because it's going to make sure that you are the best dish possible. Now, I'm not talking about a dish that people are just going to eat and consume, but a dish that the world can say, this is a masterpiece. So why not be the masterpiece that you can be today? My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.